Well, you've probably seen this sprawling steel foundry as you drive past Berkeley on Interstate 80.
Well, neighbors say it has been polluting their environment for more than a century. So when it finally shut down last December, there was a collective sigh of relief.
But as KPIX 5's Christin Ayers discovered, the saga isn't over yet.
Really scared. For my employees, for myself, for my employees' families.
Jake Cherry didn't know what he was getting into when he leased a yard in Berkeley for his computer recycling business. It used to be part of Pacific Steel Casting, an 83-year-old foundry that shut down last year after going bankrupt. The foundry had a history of pollution violations, but Jake says when he leased his section,
We were told that the property would be safe to move on to.
a report commissioned by the landlord, HFR Properties, found high levels of heavy metals inside a metal structure called a bag house on the premises where the foundry used to dump its hazmat waste. According to the report, the materials in these baghouse areas are contained and pose no substantive threat to occupants of the site. But after he moved in, Jake noticed suspicious dirt collecting under the metal structure, so he paid for his own testing.
So we tested directly underneath each one of these openings from the bag house that have been cut away. That's this stuff you see here. And it essentially showed that the same levels of toxins that were inside of the bag house are now on the ground surface.
Arsenic, chromium, lead, and other heavy metals way above safe limits right on the ground where employees for Jake's company, Universal Waste Management, had been working for a year.
Our greatest fear is that one of us gets sick as a result of the toxins on site.
But when he turned to the city of Berkeley for help,
The answer came back, our department is not responsible for this. Please talk to the next department.
We discovered why it may be a sensitive subject for Berkeley. It turns out when Pacific Steel went out of business, it signed a closure plan with the city to clean up any toxins left behind. But that was never completed. In fact, here in Jake's yard, it never even started.
It's kind of on hold right now just because of the bankruptcy.
Carl Boucher is in charge of overseeing that closure plan as head of the city's toxics management department. Despite Pacific Steel's reputation as one of the worst polluters in Berkeley, he says he trusts the report the landlord commissioned that shows the site is safe.
Their ultimate report made it clear that there was no worker safety health hazard. And so that's what we're going by right now.
But the county disagrees. After visiting the site, it publicly posted a warning letter to Pacific Steel and Jake's landlord that says existing analytical data confirm that the site appears to pose a risk to human health and the environment.
That's concerning when you hear that, especially considering that you had a recycler and its employees on site there working on the site for more than a year.
Which report are you talking about?
We're talking about the county letter that just went out and was posted last week.
A letter that Boucher was CC'd on.
Have you seen this letter, Carl?
I'm not sure, no.
How in the world did the city of Berkeley allow this business to get a permit at this location, considering all of the pollution there? How did that happen?
What business are you talking about, and what specifically are you referring to?
We are talking about the recycling company.
So which permit are you talking about?
City of Berkeley spokesperson Mathai Chaco, watching from the side, started to interrupt.
The city does not have discretion to not issue that business license. The city has to, is required to. There's no choice there.
I'm not asking how the business got a license. I am asking how a business was permitted to work on a site that it is very clear has a toxic pollution problem.
In a very biased way, you're asking this question. When you talk about the site, you're talking about a very vast portion. You're not talking about which part of which location or what Carl...
I gave the address of the location that I'm talking about. As someone who is over this department, what do you have to say to the people who may have been exposed to toxic substances while working on that site?
That is definitely a biased question, and
there are people who work on that site who may have been exposed to toxic substances. Was it a mistake for people to be working on that site?
I'm not a toxicologist, I couldn't tell you that.
Back at the recycling yard, Jake Cherry's taking matters into his own hands. He says county officials have told him in no uncertain terms he needs to leave. We caught up with him as he and his employees were packing up and closing shop.
And we're feeling angry, disappointed, overlooked, let down, and at risk.
The county is holding Pacific Steel Casting and Jake's landlord, HFR Properties, responsible for cleanup of the site and has requested to meet with them and the bankruptcy trustees involved in person. Meanwhile, Jake's landlord is now suing him for non-payment of rent. Jake tells us he's countersuing for exposure to toxic materials. In Berkeley, Christin Ayers, KPIX 5.